Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. So, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to this Engage to Excel group conversation series. Today, we're talking about reinventing the award ceremony in a virtual world. I am Tamika Figaro, the moderator for today, and I'm also joined by Roy Sanderson. The goal for today's webinar is to give you tips on how to make a virtual ceremony enjoyable for all your employees. And we'll have Roy here to answer all your questions and give you insights on how to achieve that. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. We encourage everyone to ask questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, since your microphone will be muted. And if we don't have time to get to your question, I'll make sure that we send you an email to respond to that. Lastly, this conversation is being recorded, so it will be available on the Redo and Engage to Excel Vimeo pages. We are going to send you an email to send you the link, so you will not have to look for that. So for today's webinar, I am joined by Roy Sanderson, the Chief Learning Officer of Engage to Excel Group. Roy has been in the employee recognition field for more than 24 years now, and he's also the author of Practicing Recognition: How to Give Meaningful Recognition to People Every Day. You'll see that Roy is very passionate about employee recognition, and he loves being able to teach people how to give recognition the right way. Roy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's good to be back again.
Yes, absolutely. It's a new year. We have new topics for the webinars. And today is reinventing the award ceremony in a virtual world. This is a key topic for us because we find ourselves in a situation where everything needs to be done electronically. So Roy, in the case of award ceremonies, what kind of changes have you noticed?
Yeah, I think we need to kind of just reconsider, what are award ceremonies? They're all about celebrating our colleagues, whether it be, career milestones or celebrating perhaps a prestigious award of excellence or something that they've achieved. And award ceremonies are typically known to be an event, a social gathering, honoring, specific people with the community that they belong to. I think what has changed for award recipients as we work virtually are things like a lack of connection and visibility with one another. There's not so much of a community anymore to even celebrate with. We lack perhaps the festivity and having fun together. When you get into a large room, there's always that lovely conversation and hustle and bustle that goes on. So there's no break from the routine with what we're going through working virtually. I think leaders are going to be less likely to be involved, Tamika. And in reality, I don't think too many people are taking responsibility for virtual celebrations. And that needs to be very much assigned and dedicated to someone, because it's an art to doing these award celebrations virtually. And I think in reality, there's no real celebration going on. Sometimes it's just another meeting, and we want to get away from that.
Yeah, and you said that there is a disconnect between people right now. So what tips would you give to reinvent the award ceremony in a virtual world?
Right. I think there's now greater opportunity to think more about the employee experience that you want to create, because it's a lot more individually presented, delivered. It's all more about the individual than a group necessarily. But how do you want the award recipient to feel after this virtual event? And I think if you think more about those kind of feelings and the experience that you want the award recipient to have, you'll probably get more into a celebratory mindset and make it more meaningful. I think we need to create more kind of celebration memory triggers. You want the employee to experience something special right where they work, wherever they are. And you want them to remember this event for as long as you can. So survey the team members, whether you use a survey tool, Google Forms, You can find out the funniest moments that the individual has had, or from their colleagues, things, achievements that they might have had that they stand out for them, favorite activities and things like this. But I think it's important to come back to try to create those celebration memory triggers. And I try to remind people that when you're creating a virtual event, you need to kind of replicate the sensory experiences that we normally associate with a real live in-person event. And I think we forget that. If you're just having another meeting and having a kind of a cursory kind of presentation, and it's just a meeting, it's not really real. So we need to replicate those senses. So when I think of sound, I think about trying to bring music in to the event. You might be playing the Celebration by Kool and the Gang, We Are the Champions by Queen, I don't know. Um, Even have noisemakers ready for people, or send someone one of those 3D musical cards that they open up and the music plays. Maybe a little embarrassing, but it could be fun as well, depending on the individual and the person. When you're dealing with sight, I think, I mean, I've got my regular office background, but you can get now these kind of stretch material that go over a frame. There's a company called AnyVoo, and they actually provide a branded stretched material over a frame that you can have that behind you if you're concerned about having, say, a Zoom background, or technology, too much technology, and everything stops being viewed as well because of the technology. So I think that's important to kind of come up with that, creating a kind of a special experience. You might create a special highlight reel where you're celebrating that individual, and you're putting together whether still pictures or little video snippets together from individuals talking about their experience with either the career, or perhaps about the award that they have won, if it was an achievement award, for example. And then I think of touch, and then there's the actual gift or award being delivered. And maybe you need to. I've got one here. Maybe you need to send someone a stress ball, because it can be a little nerve-wracking coming on to a virtual visual presentation. Send them, a personalized pen and journal ahead of time, special care package, something they can touch and feel and experience. And of course, we can't forget taste. Most wonderful award events have catered food events. So we need to kind of replicate that in some way. Try and find out the favorite food items, since we're trying to personalize this. Maybe there's a special drink that the individual has. So you can send a very special care package, perhaps, or a snack subscription box or something like that. So I think we're getting close with taste to smell. So can the food items be delivered on time, like just in time for the award event, so they can have that aroma right there with them with the event? And I know with birthdays that we've had in our own family, we've suggested that everyone have their own cake that they bought themselves on hand to have available. And so there's a kind of a sensory experience that can be enjoyed with all who come on board with the presentation. You might have a bouquet of flowers. Of course, flowers have a wonderful aroma that people love, or it might be just a house plant, mugs with their favorite tea, chocolate, or even you can buy those cakes in a mug. So you might give them a cake in a mug that they can mix. It's having fun and exploring the opportunity through all those senses of what you can do to make this a more unique, meaningful experience, even when there's no one else in the room other than the computer screen or whichever device they're using to connect with everyone.
I love the tips. I really like the stress ball idea.
Uh-huh.
Um, what are some other essential components to look at differently when we're doing a virtual award ceremony?
Sure. I think in reality, we don't have to go too far away from creating a physical on site event to kind of draw upon. So, for example, you need to know what the purpose of the event is. And I think you need to define what the purpose is for the event, an experience you want to create, even when it's virtual. You always have a budget that you're having to deal with. And of course, with a more physical event, and you're going to have a larger budget, you still have to be mindful if you're doing more of these individually. You need to be still aware of what the budget constraints are, and you have to monitor that. There's always timelines, project timelines that you have to create. And I would say that with a virtual event, you're going to have to increase the timeline. It takes a lot more to line everything up, especially if you're having things delivered to an individual with the constraints that the pandemic has created with the kind of decreased time length. Well, it takes longer time rather for how long it takes to get things to certain places. I don't know about you. We still got some Christmas cards the other day from people sent from England. So it's amazing how long it takes. So even if you're using couriers, you're going to need to make sure that you up the timelines. In a real event, you're trying to secure the venue. I think with the virtual events, you need to make sure you've got the right video conferencing platform that's going to work for you and for the recipient, and perhaps for significant others and other people who are going to join. You need to make sure that's going to be something that works well. We normally send out invitations to people, and I think we can create the kind of digital templates that we can still personalize and use. Often the events that we create that are in person have a theme and some kind of format that's kind of trying to be the best of the best, or stars, or whatever theme they have, or whether it be something around the calendar or whatever it is. And we think we can still create monthly or quarterly themes even for our award events that we have with people. It's a lot of logistics planning, and I think it's still, even with the virtual, it's still a lot of moving parts that need to be taken care of. And of course, now with these various video conferencing apps and tools, you can still do an RSVP, and so to remind people. Normally, we're booking a photographer or an entertainment for a live event, and I'd say you still need some good AV person to either screen capture or create those opportunities after the recording to create that opportunity for a picture. And maybe with everything moving so fast, and especially when you have different views with the video conferencing technology, that you actually do create a posing for a picture kind of image capture or opportunity that will at least be edited after the time. So we need a lot of moving parts. There's usually tables, chairs, and supplies when we have a live event. But I think now a recipient and host need to be thinking about what they need on hand. We might arrange for flowers and decorations if it was a real event. And why not have everyone purchase some decorations if you're on a budget to be in their background? Or if there is a budget, maybe send a home celebration kit that can be reused for all the celebrations. So these are just, I think, just keep in mind, what do you normally do if it was a live event? And try and increase the time, the care, the effort that goes into what needs to happen with a virtual event.
Yeah, I think you have a very good point, especially for planning. You would think that since you're doing it virtually, it'll take less time, but actually sometimes you forget about sending a package, and now it takes even more time than before because everyone is sending each other packages. So that's a very good thing to keep in mind. Do you have any recommendations you can give us for recognition to employees that are celebrating a career milestones or length of service awards?
Yeah, I think we need to kind of look more carefully at this. I don't know about you, but I've actually been present in a company where an individual received their milestone award, and they opened it and told us that, this was like, oh, close to noon hour, I think, when we were meeting with them. And they told me that, my manager hasn't even spoken to me about this. They haven't even emailed, they haven't even called me. I think the first thing we need to do is make managers responsible for representing the organization around career milestone awards. Too often, career milestone and long service awards, whatever we call them, tend to be considered more of an HR thing. This is their job. This is what they're doing. But in reality, career milestone awards are just that. They're the company honoring the career of that individual. And since the CEO doesn't necessarily have to be always be there, it means that the manager needs to represent the organization. So I think we need to put more accountability on the manager to be representing the organization with that career milestone award and be held accountable for it. So that would be the first thing. I think the second thing we need to look at is just making the experience much more personalized. The individual being honored cannot physically meet with their peers, but what can we do to touch them, move them emotionally in a personal way? We need to find out more about them, talk about that, find out about their career successes and things that they did that in many ways we tend to forget, but our colleagues, if you come together, will always remember special moments that they've shared with the individual, and that can be a wonderful thing to do. And I think we need to think more about the person's career experience. It's not just their length of service. It's probably why I like the term career milestone. It's making their career experience one that is valued and positive, rather than making it sound like, I don't know, length of service could almost sound like doing time or something, or an endurance race. So let's focus on their career. And I think when you're really trying to create an experience for them, another idea is to invite key people to add their commentary and add a level of surprise to the person, whether that's video recording because it was hard to connect with the individual live, or to have them come on. And maybe there's, rereading letters from people, all kinds of opportunities, but create a video recording perhaps of these special people giving their reflections. So I think for significant milestones like this, you can prepare even a short video montage, for example. Ordering special food items like I've shared before. And then of course, you might have in the home, if the people are working from home, family members. And maybe if you work with the significant others, they can have the surprise of having additional families show up that they didn't even know were coming, showing up behind them, and they're going, what? I mean, can you just imagine the fun that would be to have that kind of, I think, just fun experience of having, unexpected guests arrive, either online if we had to, but in person if it's safe to do so, of course.
Oh, very good tips. I think it's important to connect people that are working from home to the people at home with them. So these are very, very great tips. And I was reading in the chat section,
Uh-huh.
someone who said, Caitlin Boyd said, we hosted a drive-through service award ceremony. I know this may not work for everyone, but it was a blast. If there's ever an opportunity, we had entertainers, music, flowers, and more sharing it through their vehicle windows. So, Caitlin, this is such a great event idea. I love it.
Yes, and I've seen in our own neighborhood over the summer, for example, with graduations, where people had drive-by, wave at the graduates. So, I mean, there's different ways of doing things. It's going to be whatever is logistically possible. And I think that's the key, as we've talked about earlier. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of orchestration. Whatever is going to work for your organization, you bet, make it work.
Yeah. So before I continue with my questions, I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the Q&A box. We have one here from Melissa. And she says, my HR team is not used to creating virtual events, and we don't have an events team. Do you have recommendation for dividing and conquering and including others outside of HR to help?
Well, the good news is, Tamika, that you're always going to have the party planners somewhere in the organization who just have fun. They're known for it. And I think you can draw upon those volunteers to assist. Yes, there are a lot of organizations that don't have event organizers or don't have the capacity to do this as well as maybe what I've described today. But I think there are people who would love to be involved. So put the feelers out, ask for volunteers to assist. There's always going to be AV people who will have the same kind of mindset that will be willing to help and support. Yes, I love the idea of dividing and conquer. Don't try to do it all if you don't have the capabilities or the ability time-wise, whatever. But there will be people who can assist you. And I guess the other part is keep it simple. Maybe you can't do all the sensory things that I've suggested, but certainly you can make a difference by making it more personal for each individual that you're honoring.
Yeah, and thank you, Roy, for that. I had a question by Karen. I will send you your response by email. I took it in note. So she was asking for the reference for the company that does, you said, the stretch screen that you can put behind you,
Oh,
Roy?
yes, it's any VOO. So it's any, A-N-Y, and then V-O-O.
Okay, so I put it in the chat section.
You got it.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah, it's kind of forgive me for describing it this way, but it's like the leotard material, like the kind of stretchy kind of stuff, and they will print it for you with your company name. And they have a frame that you set up so it's behind you. And so you could have your company logo here, for example. And it's just a nice way to not be heavy loading on the bandwidth of the platform that you might be using, because it's permanently there rather than using technology. And sometimes some computers can't use, say, a Zoom background, for example, because it's too much behind them. All right.
Especially, I think, since there are so many people
Oh,
online, so it'll
mhm.
probably lag with all the
Yeah,
backgrounds
yeah,
and everything.
exactly.
We have another question by Dawn. It says, in a large organization like ours, we recognize 2,000 employees a year. Leaders have very large spans of control and feel overwhelmed trying to make it personal. What advice would you have?
Yes, I think you can still make it personal. So are they talking about the leaders here, if I understood correctly?
Yes.
And I think, using the technology that we have today, I think it could be quite easy for a leader to be either independently able or with an AV team to, plan out, look at the schedule for who needs to be honored and celebrated for a month, for example, and literally send. And then their assistants, the executive assistants, could get the background information on that individual. And they could literally create 1-minute messages, for each individual and video record those in a kind of a bulk way. One of the things that's suggested when you're doing multimedia stuff is to bulk prepare your content. So I'm trying to do some videos, for example, so I try to schedule them all at one time. And that would be the recommendation I would give, that for the number of employees, they could take a chunk of time, slot it into their calendar. If they had to work with an AV person, that could be arranged. And then they would have maybe their executive assistant assist them in the pointers, the point form, bullet form, message points for each individual. And that CEO, senior leader, could then video record their greeting and congratulations for each individual, instead of like having to always feel that they're having to show up at each live event, which is probably unmanageable, but still make it personal for the individual. That would be a suggestion.
Yeah, and actually, this kind of leads up to our next question, which Daly is asking. Uh, do you have a best practice for length of time to hold people's attention? And he's asking, would you say 1 hour?
Oh, I see what you might. Yeah, the shorter you can make every message point, every little interaction. This is like a TV show that you're creating, and even those have commercial breaks, right? So you could even do that. You could have some form of entertainment, short, sweet, in between things. You're right. You need to create that variety to keep people engaged. I think imagine if everybody had noisemakers and at a certain cue, everybody had to pick up their noisemaker at the same time. You need to get participation with everyone. Um, and maybe there's a company little chant or we've prepared everyone to say a certain cute, fun, engaging line at certain points. I think that is a way in which we need to kind of get the variety going with both those who we're honoring and those who are attending, hoping to honor that person even though they're not physically there. There's got to be ways in which we can make this more meaningful. So, if it's everybody getting up this, the balls at the same time. I mean, who knows what it's going to be for your organization? But make this fun. I think the more fun you can put in, you'll come up with great ways to engage everyone. But think bite-sized little chunks with the messaging. Don't make this too drawn out. Have little commercial breaks in some shape or form, entertainment, whatever. It's like little short bites.
Yeah, very good advice, especially that it's at home. So it's easier to get distracted by what's happening behind you. So this is a very good way of staying connected. I like the idea again of the stress ball to kind of say, like, hey, we're still here, we're still
Yep,
holding our ball,
you
connecting.
bet.
Another question by Daly. The question is thoughts on opening up attendance to the entire company, 10,000 employees. In person, our event is usually 150 people, 75 winners, and one guest each.
Well, I think the beauty of doing this video format virtually is that with the consent of everyone involved, the video can be recorded and then placed on wherever you need to within the organization, on the intranet, whether you have parts playing. There may be some employees who are working back in the office or in the plant, and maybe you have it show up on the LED screens, in the cafeteria or wherever, but having it on the intranet. I think if you can get the video edited so that you have time markers for different things, you could actually, show the time markers by event, by person, by whatever. I think this is an opportunity with communications to send out, hey, we'd like to recognize so and so and show just that segment of the video clip shared throughout. I don't think it's wise, based on the technology and bandwidth that we've described, to make this viewable by 10,000 people all at one time. I don't think that's wise, safe in the sense of the technology, and viable. I don't think that's realistic. But because it's recorded, we can now use that as an ongoing tool to talk about the importance of celebration in all the various ways I've just mentioned.
Well, thank you, Roy, for answering all our questions. And thank you for your questions, everyone. Thank you for participating. I almost didn't have time for my questions, but my final question is, would you have any final thoughts on reinventing the award ceremony in a virtual world?
Yeah, it's a different world, isn't it, Tamika? I don't think we ever imagined this all happening, but it has. And I think people, as we heard from some of the ideas that were mentioned earlier from others, besides what I've shared, I think we can have a lot of creativity going on. I think the ideas I'd like to leave people with is that, focus on celebrating the individual first, the way they want to be recognized. Keep in mind that not everybody likes public recognition. So even with doing a video meet with someone, it might only be the manager and that employee. It might not always be shared because the individual doesn't like that, doesn't want that. So respect those views. So celebrate the individual first. I think it's thinking about, what it is you want each award recipient to feel. I mean, we want them to be happy. We want them to feel celebrated and honored. That's just right for them. Find out what's right for them. Learn more about the individual and how they like to be recognized. I think it's about making every virtual celebration a creative way to have fun and connect with everyone, whatever size gathering is best for your organization. And share the virtual award ceremonies online for everyone to view after the event, along with photos. There's so much that can be done. Create that reel, that success reel, along with labeled segments to click on with the timestamps, like I mentioned. And I guess last of all, I guess everyone, all of us, are going to have to keep growing as we transform our award events into real virtual celebrations.
Thank you, Roy, for all your insights on the subject. This was a very requested subject from everyone. So we're really happy that you're here to just share your wisdom with us. I am going to close this out for today. We're actually over the time, but I'd like to thank you and for everyone for participating. If I didn't have time to get to your question, note that I'll respond to you by email. And if there's something you didn't have time to ask, you can send us an email at adaegroup@adaegroup.com. It should be in the chat box. So you can copy paste that email and send us your question. That's it for today. Thank you again, Roy, and have a very good afternoon, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.